The lingering aroma of lavender and lemon polish filled the air, a crisp, sterile scent that masked something far less pristine. It was the unmistakable signature of Tiffany's latest obsession: cleaning. For months, she had thrown herself into a frenzy of domesticity, scrubbing and organizing with a near-manic fervor, as if she could bury something beneath the immaculate surfaces and neatly folded laundry. That Sunday, she decided the living room needed a new focal point. A large framed photo took its place on the mantel, carefully positioned, almost reverently displayed. It was a shrine of sorts, a tribute to what she fondly called her work family. Her enthusiasm for her colleagues had always struck me as excessive, almost performative. The image itself was standard office fare: forced smiles, stiff postures, a sea of corporate anonymity. Yet Tiffany gazed at it as though it were a masterpiece, her eyes bright with a pride that felt strangely out of place. "They're the best team, Jackson," she declared, her voice just a fraction too loud, too eager. "I'm so lucky to work with such a great group of people." Out of politeness, I let my gaze drift across the photograph. There was Brenda, the perpetually frazzled marketing manager, and David, the IT guy with dark circles under his eyes, looking as if sleep had long since abandoned him. And then, him. A man I didn't recognize stood slightly apart from the others, though not quite alone. His presence in the image was magnetic, effortlessly drawing attention. He was taller than the rest, with a rakish grin and piercing eyes that seemed to burn through the glossy print. His hand hovered near Tiffany's shoulder, close, but not touching. A blurred name tag read Zane. "Who's that?" I asked, my tone deliberately light, casual. The reaction was immediate. Tiffany's smile faltered as though I had pulled a thread in an unraveling fabric. The laughter that had bubbled so easily just moments ago died in her throat. The air between us shifted, the warmth seeping out like heat escaping through an open door. Her lips parted, then pressed together before she forced out a brittle reply. "Zane," she said, almost as if testing the name on her tongue. "His. New. Just started a few weeks ago." A few weeks ago. That was when the late nights at the office had begun. When her kisses had grown absent-minded, her touch perfunctory. When I had started waking up to find her curled on the far edge of the bed, as if even in sleep, she was retreating. My heartbeat, steady just moments before, now pounded with a dull, aching weight. A cold dread clawed its way up my throat. It wasn't just the lie, it was the way she lied. The hesitation in her voice. The way her gaze flickered away, unable to meet mine. The picture remained on the mantel, its presence an unspoken challenge. Over the next week, I caught Tiffany staring at it, her expression distant, almost wistful. Her fingers would drift to the frame, tracing its edges with an absent touch. But it wasn't the photograph as a whole that held her captive, it was him. Her gaze lingered on Zane's face for just a second too long. That was when the idea first took root, a dark, twisting seed in the depths of my mind. I had always been quiet, easygoing, the type to avoid confrontation. But this was different. This betrayal had carved something raw and unrecognizable inside me. I started carefully, subtly. I brought up Zane's name in conversation, watching her closely each time. Without fail, she would flinch, a fleeting crack in her carefully constructed facade. The mask of forced indifference was slipping. Then, I found him. His LinkedIn profile. Zane Carter. Rising star in sales. Charismatic. Successful. The kind of man who knew exactly how handsome he was and wielded it like a weapon. I studied him. Memorized him. His features, his voice, his habits, every detail I could unearth. My curiosity turned into something sharper, something insidious. And then, buried deep in her deleted WhatsApp messages, I found it. A single line. "Can't wait until tonight." My fingers trembled as I stared at the words, though not with anger. No, this feeling was something far colder. The weight of betrayal didn't just press down on me, it shattered me, crushing my world into jagged pieces. But from that wreckage, something else emerged. A fire. A hunger. Vengeance wasn't just a desire. It was a necessity. Tiffany would have her reckoning, but not yet. No, first, I wanted him to pay. I wanted Zane to feel the sting of destruction, to watch the smug arrogance drain from his face as his world collapsed. I tracked him carefully, using Tiffany's phone to map out his routine. His gym visits, his habits, the empty rhythm of his existence. He was a walking cliché, one of those men who thrived on charm but lacked substance. We exchanged meaningless words at the gym, small talk about work, about sales, about nothing. He had no idea who he was speaking to, no clue that every casual interaction was a thread in the web I was spinning around him. Weeks passed, my rage simmering just beneath the surface. Then came the night of the storm. Rain pounded the pavement, thick sheets of water cascading down as I waited. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one inside me. Then, finally, he emerged. Zane stepped out of the gym, his face flushed, his hair damp with sweat. He moved toward his car, completely unaware that tonight, his world would crack just as mine had. I intercepted him, my stance casual, my voice measured. "Zane, right?" He turned toward me, confusion flickering in his eyes before recognition settled in. "Yeah. You're Jackson, right? Tiffany's husband." I let the words hang between us for a beat before answering. "That's right." Then I hit him. The force of the punch sent him staggering, his body slamming against the wet pavement. Shock twisted his face, his lips parting in a gasp. Blood smeared across his mouth. "What the hell?" he choked out, but I wasn't interested in his words. I grabbed the front of his shirt, yanking him up until our faces were inches apart. My voice was low, deadly. "You and my wife." The words were sharp, slicing through the rain. "You pathetic, spineless excuse of a man." The Jackson he knew, the quiet, reserved Jackson, was gone. What stood before him now was someone else entirely, a man consumed by fury, sharpened by betrayal. Zane tried to shove me away, but I was relentless. My fist connected with his jaw, sending him crashing into his car. The metal shuddered under the impact. Rain poured over us, drenching our clothes, mixing with the blood trickling down his face. Onlookers stared, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered except the satisfaction of watching him crumble. Another blow. Then another. Each one fueled by the sleepless nights, the whispered lies, the gut-wrenching realization that my life had been unraveling behind my back. By the time I stepped away, he was a wreck. His nose bled freely, his lip was split, his eyes were wide with terror. I loomed over him, breathing hard, my knuckles throbbing. "Stay away from her," I said, my voice like a blade slicing through the downpour. "Stay away from my life." Then I turned and walked away, leaving him broken on the pavement, his shame washed away by the relentless rain. The next day, I went to Tiffany's office. I hadn't spoken to her since that night. Hadn't heard her voice, hadn't allowed her any space to spin her lies. She looked up from her desk as I entered, her eyes widening, a mix of fear and guilt flashing across her face. "You know, don't you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Instead, I reached for the framed photo on her desk, the one she had always been so proud of, the one with him in it. In one swift motion, I smashed it against the edge of her desk. Glass shattered, fragments scattering like the remnants of our marriage. The picture tumbled to the floor, Zane's face crumpled and torn. "I'm done, Tiffany." My voice was cold, devoid of emotion. "I'm moving out. You can have your perfect work life. Just leave me the hell alone." I let the broken frame fall from my fingers and turned my back on her, walking out without a second glance. That night, I packed a bag, just the essentials. No sentimental remnants of our life together, no lingering attachments. I found a small apartment on the other side of town, an empty space waiting to be filled with something new. I had lost Tiffany. That much was undeniable. But in losing her, I had gained something else. A strange, unfamiliar sense of peace. The crushing weight of betrayal had lifted, replaced by a quiet resolve. I had confronted my demons. I had taken my revenge. And now, I was free. Free from her deception, free from Zane's smug grin, free to rebuild my life piece by piece. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.